Hi, I'm the editor of a food magazine. Today, we are going to do an ingredient spotlight on one of my favorite ingredients, aged balsamic vinegar. Many people think that all balsamic vinegar is the same, but in reality, there's a huge difference between the cheap stuff and the good stuff. And today, I'm going to explain why it's worth paying for the good stuff. First off, let's talk about what makes this ingredient so special. Balsamic vinegar is made from just two ingredients, grapes and thyme. Over the course of several years, these two ingredients transform into this rich, complex, aged liquid. And the best aged balsamic vinegar is incredibly nuanced. It's both sour and sweet with a rich caramel color. You can almost taste the fruitiness of the grapes that it's made from, but it has this rich complexity from years of aging that you just do unsee in other vinegars. This aged balsamic vinegar is incredible on salads, drizzled over grilled chicken or fish. It's amazing in a marinade where you can really let those flavors meld and marry together. And it's also great in a glaze for meats like duck or pork. In fact, let me tell you about one of my favorite glazes. It's super easy to make. You take half a cup of aged balsamic vinegar, you add a fourth a cup of honey, and you bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, you reduce it over medium heat until it's thickening. And then once it's thickening, you add a tablespoon of butter and you mix it around until the butter has melted and you have a nice thick glaze. This is amazing for pork chops or pork tenderloin, but finding this aged balsamic vinegar can be tricky. Many supermarkets carry a generic brand of balsamic vinegar, but these are usually just okay. They're not very nuanced, they're not very complex, and many of them are adulterated with other ingredients. So how can you tell if your balsamic vinegar is high quality? First off, look at the label. Does it say 100% grape? If it doesn't, put it back. You want 100% grape juice, because that means that the only ingredient in true aged balsamic vinegar. It will list the year that it was aged. So if you see something that says aged 25 years, you know that it's been aged for 25 years. And that's a really important distinction because the longer it's aged, the more complex the flavor will be. You want to avoid anything that says concentrated because that means that they've added water and other ingredients to kind of stretch out the balsamic vinegar. And if it says aged in the United States, it hasn't been aged as long as it should. True aged balsamic vinegar is aged in Italy. And the best way to ensure that it's authentic is to look for the DOP seal. DOP stands for Denominazione di Origine Protetta. And this is a certification that ensures that the product meets certain standards. In the case of aged balsamic vinegar, it has to have been aged at least 12 years. When you find a bottle of aged balsamic vinegar, it's an investment, but it's worth every penny. And since you'll probably have some questions about pricing, let me address that now. A 100 ml bottle of aged balsamic vinegar can cost upwards of $40. But here's the thing. You don't need a lot of aged balsamic vinegar for most recipes. So even though the price per milliliter might seem high, you really aren't using that much in most recipes. So it's not as pricey as you might think. Let me share a little story. A few years ago, I was at a supermarket and I was looking for aged balsamic vinegar. And I found this amazing bottle of aged balsamic vinegar. It was from a small producer and it had the DOP seal. I was so excited to find it. But then I looked at the price and it was really expensive. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really expensive. But then I stopped and I thought, you know what? This is going to last me a long time. Because I don't use that much aged balsamic vinegar. In fact, when I got home, I opened it up and I was making salad dressing and I was using this aged balsamic vinegar. And I realized it was so worth the price. The flavor was so much better than any other aged balsamic vinegar I'd ever tasted before. It was complex, it was fruity, it was nuanced. It brought this acidity to my salad dressing that was just unmatched. And that's the thing about aged balsamic vinegar. Yes, it's expensive, but it's going to last you a long time. And when you use it in cooking, even just a little bit, it really elevates those dishes. So next time you're at the grocery store, look for aged balsamic vinegar. Look for that DOP seal. Look for the words 100% grape juice on the label. And be afraid to splurge a little bit, because it's an ingredient that you really gone, treasure.